Welcome tonight. The topic is the three sacred sisters you want to meet. And no, they're not angelic beings. Well, I don't know. We might have some of those show up too. But they are three ideas closely related, important sacred sisters for enlightenment. And they are this: boredom, stillness, and aloneness. And when I told Chuck the topic, he was like, ugh, gross. He wants to hear about boredom. Well, he didn't say it quite as dramatically as I did. He wasn't too enthused. But let's just see if there's anything to these three sacred sisters of boredom, aloneness, and stillness.
I'm bored.
Chuck says he's bored already. All right, I'm going to start before we jump into channeling. Right at the get-go, we're going to jump into channeling. But first, I want to read this little part from the answer to all your questions. And this is the first book of Judah. And I wish you guys could see how much stuff we have to go through. I don't want to call it stuff because it's sacred stuff. But I've got 300 channels sitting on my phone right now that we haven't had a chance to get out there to you guys. But I imagine there's probably enough for 10 or 12 books already. But I want to read you this little part here where Judah was talking about doing nothing. It says, human beings drive themselves to madness, exhaustion, desperation, and ill health with their constant doing. There is a higher way. Doing nothing is a powerful spiritual practice that's closely linked to imagination. When embraced, it begins to break the back of a powerful cultural belief system that you must do more to have more and thereby be enough. I will never be enough is a direct lie of the culture and the ego to the soul. Almost every human soul has unwittingly buried this belief deep in their subconscious mind. This lie is constantly reinforced by the hive mind of the culture. And the truth is, in every single moment, you are always enough. Nothing that you can do can add to the perfection of your soul. And here's a quote from Matsu Basho, and it says, sitting quietly, doing nothing, spring comes, and the grass grows by itself. Shouting at an oak tree will not make it grow. It grows of its own accord, slowly, imperceptibly to the human eye, yet ultimately mighty and deeply rooted. Neither will pulling a blade of grass upwards towards the sun cause it to grow, yet it will grow in the solitude of just being what it is. The same is true for the evolution of your soul. Can you abandon striving and allow growth to just happen? Can you just be what you are in this moment? And a quote from Lao Tzu, practice doing nothing and everything will fall into place. So tonight we're going to go into channeling. Oh, go ahead. You have something?
We're called human beings, not human doings.
Human beings, not human doings. That's right. So tonight we're going to channel and ask Judah to talk to us about boredom, stillness, aloneness, and how to get free of this lie that we need to do more in order to earn our breath, our existence, our space in the world, in order to earn love and acceptance. Here we go. I'm including you. I would encourage you to really just step right over into the bliss and the sweetness of Judah's presence and your guardian angels and guides as we channel together. I know that many of you are feeling the powerful physical sensation of having Judah and other beautiful beings in the room with you, and also the awakening of your higher self as we channel. So I love hearing those stories. Don't worry if you're not feeling anything. Something good's happening for you. I'm sure of that. Here we go. Hello. Yes, hello. Judah here. So glad to see you all. Yes. So glad to be connected with you wherever you are. We are, as you know, unlimited beings, not restrained by time or space. And yes, we are in the presence of your presence. You are in our presence. We are in a shared presence here together tonight. And if you watch this tomorrow or the next day or 5 years from now, we will still be in your presence, sharing presence with you. Presence with a C and presence with a T. We have lots of presents to share with you tonight. Are you ready? Yes, ready to open all of your presents, my dear? And yes, there are 3 very precious presents we would like to give you tonight. The gift of boredom, of silence, and of aloneness. Well, we'll just take one at a time. Oh, boredom. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. We hear you yawning already just from the topic. And trust me, dears, this is what you want to do more of. More yawning, more boredom, more staring off into space. More minutes and moments of allowing your body, mind, soul, all of the complex structures of who you are to relax. To relax. You see, this was a lot of the motivation behind the 2-year illness of this vessel. As you may have heard her story, at the end of those 2 years, we burst in on her like a July 4th fireworks show. But for nearly 2 years, she did very little of anything but sit in a chair and meditate and inquire. And then a lot of knitting and a lot of nothing and a lot of nothing. And she watched everything there was to watch on Netflix. And then there was nothing more to do. But there, we had a purpose in all of this. You see, the purpose was to bring her to the end of herself, of her ego, of her roles, of her ideas about what she should be, what she had been, what she ought to be. And this is a beautiful present found in boredom, in silence, in aloneness. Because you see, she had been raised in a culture, a religious culture, and a familiar culture steeped in religion that taught her, you must earn love. And once you've earned it, you must keep earning it if you want to keep it. Now, no one said this to her directly. She was taught directly with words that God is love and that God is forgiving and many other beautiful and accurate depictions of universal consciousness that you may or may not call God. Does not matter to us. Some of these concepts were right, but you see, children don't listen to what you say. They listen to how you think, feel, move, and behave in the world. They listen to your example, not your words. And so very subtly and unintentionally, but very consistently, listen to what I said, subtly and unintentionally, unconsciously, but yet consistently, she received the message that you must earn love by doing it right, by doing it well, by being perfect, by doing more and being more and improving yourself, adding something onto yourself, being more of what you are in the moment. And so we needed to put it in park for this vessel. And for those 2 years, you see, it took just that long for her to let go of her need to do and to realize it's okay to do nothing. That there's nothing you can do, my dear, that will add to your worth. Nothing at all. Even meditation. Well, you know, this vessel is usually on a soapbox about meditating more because she knows what a beautiful presence it will bring into your life. But understand that even that adds nothing to your value. There is no spiritual practice that will add to your value. And you can get your master's and have mastered nothing. And you can get your PhD and just it will be piled higher and deeper. And we're not diminishing skills or the pursuit of skills as long as those skills are in service to the soul and the higher self. But those things will add nothing to who you are. In fact, there are times when it is frankly better to just be a fool. So, can you let yourself be bored? I would dare say that most of you cannot sit still for an hour and do nothing. And what if in that hour you did not even meditate? You just did nothing at all. Could you do it? But begin, my dears, making spaces in which you do nothing productive whatsoever, nothing to add to yourself or to others, but just to be. For the master Osho said that boredom is a gift reserved for humans. No animal, bird, tree has this gift. It is unique to humans. And if one will lean into boredom and embrace it, then one is coming closer and closer to enlightenment. So when your children wail at you and say, I'm bored, then let them wail on, because in that space of aloneness, silence, and quiet, then presence can enter. If you have a closet that's stuffed to the hilt with things, and you buy something new, you won't likely store it in that closet, because if you open the door, everything will tumble out on your head. And so how can you receive the presence and beauty of something new and powerful in your life when you're stuffed with so much activity and busyness and doings and doings and doings? And my dear, you see, one of the problems is particularly in modern cultures is this. There is so much addiction, and God bless your precious hearts, so much pain underneath it. But you can just trade one addiction for another. You can trade your alcohol or drugs or pills or cigarettes for doing something else that seems more acceptable or more compassionate or altruistic or whatever. But if you're doing it to cover up pain, it's still an addiction. If you allow yourself to be completely bored, completely still, completely alone, not medicating with activity, not medicating with connections, there is a healthy and powerful need for human connection and interaction. And then there is an unhealthy need and drive for conversation and superficial human interaction, such as on media and so on, that is a poor substitute for skin to skin in silence and quiet. Now, this gentleman here, one of the first practices that he shared with and were adopted by this vessel when they were together was to simply lay in bed in the mornings, hold each other skin to skin, and do nothing. Perhaps for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. No one watching the clock, no alarms, only alarms if they're absolutely necessary. And lying there in quiet, in stillness, and in boredom. And these are the spaces in which your fifth dimensional soul wakes up and steps forward. And the mind is shh. Shh. Now, this gentleman was very bold in his teaching of this vessel. When she would ramble on and on from her mind, he would sometimes just say, shh. Does that sound condescending to you? And it was infuriating at times to her egoic parts until she woke up and understood. Oh, I see. I'm talking out of my ego. I'm acting in addiction. I need to say more, and fill the space with my fearful ramblings. And this man had the wisdom to say, shh. So can you be bored? And in that boredom, can you allow silence? Can you turn off all your noise makers? For this is where source is found in between thoughts, in the space between this thought and the next, right there in the emptiness, the silence. And the boredom, that is where your vibrational frequency begins to be radically lifted and expanded, and you experience yourself as so expansive there. You see, on the night of Buddha's enlightenment, for 6 years up until that time, he had been trying and doing all sorts of things, fasting and this and that and the other, and so many different spiritual practices. Lots and lots of doing. Then he just sat down under a tree and he held himself in stillness and he let go. And in the night, he had a dream. And in this dream, his body, his being was so gargantuan, so massive that it covered the entire continent of India. And his head was laid to rest on the mountain, on the Himalayan mountains, and his feet in the ocean. And when he woke up, it is said that he was glowing, emanating light, and was from then on known as an enlightened being. You see, it is in the place of rest and silence and quiet, in letting go, that he experienced, he saw in a dream what he really was and what you really are. A massively vast, expansive, unlimited being who can cover continents with your light, who can cover continents with your light. If you are still for a time. Now, as I said, meditation is not a necessary spiritual practice. It adds nothing to your worth, your value in the universe. That being said, I have rarely seen a human who is resistant to meditation that in that resistance was some egoic activity, some part of the mind that hates meditation because it does not want to let go, to relinquish control. So perhaps just do it anyway. And one day you may find that you love it and that your friends and family can barely pull you away from it. And if it's so difficult for you, don't worry about the meditation part. Just focus on holding your body still for a little while. Just still. Now, this Bezel was walking down the street one day and she saw a bag of leaves at the curb, and on the bag were the words Home Depot, where doers get things done. And she heard in her heart a chuckle, and we said, meditation, where doers get things done. You can run around all day long trying to solve your problems, and you might just dig a bigger hole for yourself and make your problems worse. But if you will meditate, you may find when you get up that the problems have solved themselves. Now let's talk about aloneness. Ooh, yes, much talk, much research, much concern about the epidemic problem of loneliness. People who have everything to live for, everything going for them in the human sense, and they feel very alone, separate, isolated, heartbroken, disempowered. And we know some of you are feeling lonely even now. And that is not what we are talking about here tonight. We are talking about the gift of being alone. We are talking about transforming the energy of loneliness into a sacred aloneness. For really, to be alone is really not in truth, no one is alone, you understand. No one is ever alone. But when you can be comfortable with yourself, with your higher self, with who you are, and feel the completeness of who you are when you are alone, that no one, not even your Prince Charming, not even your Cinderella, can add to the perfection of you, nor take away from the perfection of you. You see, there's so many who think to themselves, oh, if only I just had someone and I wasn't alone. And then there are all the others who have someone and think, oh, goodness, if only I could get rid of this one and be alone. But there is a magic that happens when you are completely content within your being, whether someone is there with you or not. And so there is an aloneness that you can share. You can be together in your aloneness and be whole. Be whole when you are together with the other, requiring nothing of them and they nothing of you. The three sacred sisters: boredom, silence, and aloneness.